All right. Hi, everybody. This is a topic that I think this crew could talk about all day. So we're going to try to keep it to 30 minutes. But I think, as everyone on this panel knows, games are not done when the game is built. Player acquisition, user acquisition is ongoing, and it's probably one of the most important parts of success for a game. And we're early in the Web3 process. Everyone here has either been advising or building games in the space for a while. And I think they're getting to the point where user acquisition is becoming super important. So, that being said, we're just going to start with the panel name. And tell me about innovative strategies for user acquisition in gaming and Web3. What has your experience been so far? What are you thinking about broadly when it comes to this topic? Timo, we'll start with you.
Thanks, Andrew. For Paradise Tycoon, we obviously focus on bringing Web2 audience to the Web3 market. But that said, we do also do market for the Web3 audience because, first of all, Web3 audience is super excited to get on board very early on. And it's not on? What do I need to do?
There you go.
Up here we go. All right. So should I start over? So yeah, we focus on Web2 audience on Paradise Tycoon, but that said, we also do marketing for Web3. And one of the main reasons is that Web3 audience is super excited to get on board on games very early on. And I think personally that any game studio out there should definitely take an advantage of this. You can get like super good playtest data, feedback from early users, basically quality assurance, something that, you know, on Web 2 you would be paying for quite a bit. That said, our strategy for Web 3 is experimenting, basically. We're trying to do everything we can, like from free mints, distributing NFT whitelists to different kind of player cohorts, you know, gathering as much data as possible from different player behavior, and, you know, just learning from others as well. And that's one of the reasons I think like panels like this is super important, and you know, collaboration inside the ecosystem between game studios is extremely important. So we find the best models which do not exist yet.
Right. Yeah, I think this space is very collaborative in that way. We all know that user acquisition has been hard for Web3 games in some ways, and I love that we're all open-minded and helping each other out. So getting users involved early, free mints, those are the kind of key focuses for the Web3 audience for you right now?
Yeah, I'd say so. I mean, with the whitelist, we made different kind of models. Like, you would get a whitelist through the typical community giveaways and whatnot, but then we also added in-game events so that we could like incentivize players and get those gamers first, because we all know that Web3 audience, there's a lot of speculation, there's a lot of speculators. That might not be the best choice for games to, you know, if your gamer crowd is 90% of investors, that might not be the best case. So that's also the reason why we need to go through trial and error. We need to experiment quite a bit.
Yeah, can I ask you, have you sold any NFTs, or have they all been free so far?
They've all been free.
Okay, interesting. Yeah, we're going to get into the token side in a little bit. I think that's a hot topic as well. But Eiji?
Yeah, at first, we are from Japan, more gaming industry in the Web 2. So we haven't launched the Web 3 games yet. So we are still in development. So actually, I'm here to learn innovative strategies for this acquisition. But I can say something, how we can bridge between the Web 2 strategy and the Web 3 strategy. So for the Web 2 games, it's always important to build the community, which is, I think, similar to the Web 3. So we do a lot of the pre-launch marketing to build the Discord server and community and closed beta, and even weekly live broadcasting to build the community base. So I think we can leverage that experience in the Web 3 as well. But at the same time, so when we launch the game in the Web 3, so we need to think about two different types of the audience. The one is how we can bring the Web 2 gamers on board to the Web 3, and also on the other side is that how we can attract crypto native, the Web3 audience to our games. And then strategy for those two sides seems very different. So what we focused on right now is that on the Web2, non-Web3 audience side, we will work with a lot of IP holders or franchise and brands so that we can get to know what your audience can feel. This is kind of there is a connection to me. And also on the Web3 side, I think there are lots of communities. Of course, for example, based on the NFT collections, each collection has each communities. So what we thinking is how we can leverage existing community, not building from the ground up. So we collaborate with the NFT collections to integrate the NFT collections to the game design, so that each NFT collections communities can come to our games together, or they can invite their other holders to our games to make it viral.
Right.
So that's current our strategy, but it may change based on the situation.
Yeah, I see that a lot. There's great communities in Web3 that they spend all their time learning about games, playing games, collaborating with them, making them feel welcome is an awesome way to get integrated. I think maybe the Web3 games can go beyond just Web3 communities, though, and do more of the Web2 building across communities as well. It's very interesting. Maria, what are your thoughts broadly on innovative strategies?
Yeah, I think my answer is going to be a mix of what Timo and Eiji have mentioned. So I'm not a game studio, I'm more on the advisory side. So I kind of want to start off with what we saw in 2021 and 2022 related to user acquisition. What we've noticed is that when you launch NFTs and tokens as a form of user acquisition, this has actually kind of caused a little predatory behavior in terms of you're having people that are trying to trade your assets for financial returns. And unfortunately, in some sort of way, the gamers from the gaming community over Web2 did not want to enter this space because they saw this as a financial grab, right? So those are, I think, lessons learned that we can all agree upon in this stage. And then now in 2023, based on the lessons learned, what can we do from there? I know we mentioned community, we talked about testing. Something that I like to tell founders a lot about, or I would love to see more of, is A/B testing. So similar to any new product feature, you want to continuously be testing with your users whether or not they're interested in digital assets or not. I see digital assets as a new product feature with a financial pricing to it, if you will. So let me give you an example. Let's say you launch an MMORPG game. Obviously, the assumption is that the game is really fun and people want to play your game, right? I think there's a lot of ways that we need to go from there. But let's say it's fun. You have an audience. As those gamers play through that game, let's say they grind through it, and then there's a rare asset. The first question you should be asking the users is to mint or to not to mint. Because you want to see from the user behavior whether or not they want to mint into an NFT. If they do, then that says, okay, they really like your game, and they want to explore with using an NFT. Obviously, you want to add some utility to it. Maybe it's a Christmas game, right? You're like, okay, you get this Christmas tree NFT sticker for, I don't know, your gun or something. You're like, that means you can play the Christmas minigame. Do users want to do that or not, right? If you see there's enough user demand for it, then maybe you're like, okay, should we do a trading platform to see if there's going to be retention? So I think, EJ has mentioned there's a lot of, Timo, you mentioned there's a lot of experimentation that needs to be done. I do like the idea of free mint because when you're going through the game, you get a free mint. That's also in some sort of way related to your IP, right? Because if people are willing to pay for a price for it, that means there's a really strong IP that you've developed. So that's kind of what I would like to see more of. I think right now in Web3 games, what I really enjoy is the community aspect. So when I was growing up, I loved playing MapleStory. And I played so much, my mom took away my laptop. And I didn't know how the game was created. But right now, what I've noticed was for example, RumbleCon Kings. They would just show clips of how the game is being developed, bringing you part of the journey and asking questions like, do you like this cosmetic? Do you want to, have like this type of community? They have like many different communities and pockets of it, but I find that super fascinating. It's like you're really bringing the, good lore, if you will, throughout the entire journey. So those are things that I, would like to see more of like A/B testing. And then I also really love the community aspect of it.
Yeah, seems like so far we're all in on community. I think we can all agree.
I mean, we're in Web3, right?
Yeah, right. It is a great opportunity for that. Cam, what do you think? Innovative strategies.
Yeah, I mean, a lot's already been covered, but I think where I'd probably focused is, as Maria mentioned, is testing. There's no real playbook right now, and everyone is trying to find what that silver bullet looks like. Performance marketing is also much more difficult thanks to Apple and IDFA. And so I think that naturally has also driven, all creators in this space to look at how do we create that golden cohort, those players that really adopt and drive that initial wave, whether that's your first mint, whether that's your first install into the game, how do you evangelize those creators or those players, that group in your community to really push forward your narrative, and one area that I'm really excited about is looking at a much wider marketing toolbox. So looking at how we combine, let's say, some traditional Web 2 elements with Web 3, and one thing that we're personally planning is, for example, looking at influencers and how do we then empower them to gamify their engaged users. Obviously, marketing is always about creating alignment against a specific CTA, whether that is, like I say, the first mint, installing the game, logging onto a website, sending over your email. There's always one specific conversion event that we focus on. So how do we work with those content creators or influencers, but combine Web3 technology or blockchain technology? And maybe I'll jump into a little bit of that. I can't share too much about that, but for example, tapping into an esports organization with some of esports pro players, because we're building a competitive mobile game, it really aligns with our audience already. So as I say, how do we allow them to tell a really authentic story about Favorball, the game that we're building? And some areas that we're thinking about doing that is allowing those content creators to create user-generated content in our game, and then create tournaments around that content. For example, creating a base within Favorball and then providing that to all of their followers and gamifying that. Top players that do defeat that base get X amount of rewards. Those rewards can be NFTs within the game. That then creates value alignment and incentivize those players to jump into your community and hopefully, like Maria said, go down that rabbit hole and start to think about, okay, what is really exciting about Favorball? Why do I want to be here? What else is exciting about this studio and this game that wants me, that pushes me to really install the game in the next build or continue to follow as development continues? So I think the takeaway for me is how do we combine what many of us have already perfected or mastered in our Web 2 journey or our Web 2 lives and innovate and blend together some of the exciting technology that blockchain brings as well.
Yeah, a couple of you have mentioned to me the idea of referrals and affiliate systems. And Cam, I believe you have something in place for that already, and Maria, I know you're interested in that. I'm not sure if anyone wants to speak on that topic.
Can I share how I've been thinking about it? We'll love to pick your brain on it. Yeah. So I've been looking a lot on like the Web 2 models of like referral programs. So like one of them was like League of Legends. They were able to acquire a lot of users from a refer a friend program. And so essentially how that worked was players would refer their friends within their network, and then they would also be grinding through a game that has like 5 levels. Ultimate level, you master it, you get a champion, which is a rare asset. And as they refer these friends, as their friends also play this game, they get a portion of that experience too. So that's kind of like incentivizing them to continue to grind through that game and like also invite their friends. Really great user acquisition tool, right? Obviously there's some cons with like botting, but separate story. This model, I've been thinking a lot about how does this apply to creators? So for example, right now, when you think about esports or like Toast as like these gaming influencers, right? They usually get like a set price of like, oh, this is like you like playing the game, and then it's really great for driving user acquisition. Sorry, can you guys hear me now? And so I was wondering, like, what if a game for the creator economic side is like very similar to the Refer a Friend program, but for creators, but then they get a portion of the revenue of each transaction that a gamer plays, right? So then it's like, this makes it sticky for the creator to continue playing your game because they enjoy it. Hopefully it's a fun game, right? Obviously.
First, always fun first now.
Always fun games. Making that assumption that, Consult me needs to put that out there. Really fun game. And they can continue playing the game, and they get a portion of the revenue that's being transacted. Mm-hmm. So they make a good income. And then other players who, historically has not been an influencer can also make money playing the game. Obviously, there's like other, hacking and cheating, all that stuff to figure out. But that's something that I've been like kind of thinking a lot about, of like creator economics.
And part of it is that having referrals built on crypto rails is much simpler, right? Safer, more transparent, many benefits.
Instantaneously, yeah.
Right, yeah.
Because right now it takes forever till like 2-3 days.
Right. And
yeah, I mean, basically a model like what Roblox is doing, like a user-generated model that shares the revenue, it's so much simpler and easier to make happen on a Web3 with Web3 technology. So absolutely, I agree with that.
Right. Cam, any comment on the referrals and how that might work?
Yeah, I think we actually tested that model late last year, where we asked our community to first create a base within Fableborn. We had thousands of submissions. We built it down to 20, and not 20 the best, and what we define as the best, but 20 so we could create a linear progression curve. And by that, what I mean is base 1 was really easy. Nearly 100% of players were able to complete and go through base 1. Base 20, really talented base builder. This person had spent a lot of time building the best defense systems. And then we created a tournament around that. And that tournament was gated. You had to pay X to be able to enter into a tournament, but there's also rewards, token rewards. And so we then allowed a lot of our community to enter the tournament, some of them playing other bases that had been created, all by our community. And what that allowed is that those base builders and those content creators to really drive more user adoption and more installs, because for more players that entered, obviously the larger reward pool, and each of those 20 bases that we selected, that was now a revenue stream. We split that entire revenue pool, or that entry pool, with those 20 users. And so that created an alignment for us that we want installs, we want more players. These 20 base builders, they want more people to come into a tournament because that increases a reward pool for them. And so it again still focused, however, on creating value within our ecosystem. And it's still centered around coming in and playing the game, which I think, it always has to center around engagement for us.
Yeah. All right, let's move on to the next question. So I think everyone here knows that Web3 games have struggled to onboard Web2 users. Any mention of crypto is kind of met with skepticism, and it's been a bit of a struggle. So what, in your mind, is the key to solving that? Is it not mentioning crypto? What is it?
I'd like to add a little hopium into this topic. I think, first of all, like two things. First of all, most of the Web3 games are still very early. So compared to Web2 games, you wouldn't be doing user acquisition that early. So keep that in mind. And secondly, there's a lot of talk about ATT, IDF, how it's making user acquisition of mobile games especially like super difficult and challenging. And although it definitely has made it more challenging, but it's still like, game studios are still doing user acquisition in mobile. There are still users in mobile games.
You have 250,000 downloads, right? From somewhat traditional methods?
Yeah. It's a start. Yeah. The number goes up.
Right.
And it's mainly Web 2. It's a combination of Web 2 and Web 3, but obviously most of that is Web 2. And
Right.
yeah, we can still do it.
Yeah. And so I guess what's the takeaway from that? Like, how are you doing that effectively without scaring people off? It's just lightweight integrations.
Well, you know, I mean, it's already becoming a cliche, like the fun first, the game first, but it rings the truth. Like, approach the user acquisition game first. You don't have to start your ad or whatever with mentioning NFTs or crypto.
Right.
And you know, if people get attention of the game, pretty much what Maria said earlier, that you know, like add the Web3 layer by layer, gradually into the game. Like start with a fun game, good first time user experience, incentivize the NFT side of the game, for example. Give the players options to mint if they want. Don't force them into anything. And you know, just keep in mind all the 101s of game design, of creating a good user experience, and then just, you know, gradually take them deeper and deeper and deeper into the
Don't force them
Dark
into
web.
that.
Yeah, I think I can add to that is that you really have to meet Web2 players' expectations. And I'd say majority of Web3 games right now, you know, as Timo mentioned, first they're early, but also they just don't have a production value that's there, and the bar is really low. For Web2 players, the bar is super sky high. You know, they're playing games like Clash Royale, Diablo Immortal, Genshin Impact. These are games built by hundreds and hundreds of developers with multi-million-dollar budgets spent over 2-3 years. And so a Web2 player comes into your game, and their expectation is, how is this either as good or better than what I'm currently playing? And so it really goes, you know, without being cliche again, it really goes back to meeting those expectations. And so that means high production value, really, really intuitive and user-friendly for TUI, creating high production value along the gameplay, and of course being fun. You know, Web2 players come in there for a number of different motivations, whether that's to play socially, whether that's to compete or something else. And so you have to really align your game with those player motivations. And if you don't, regardless of how much money you spend, regardless of how big your Discord server is, you just won't scale. And so understanding your audience and building an experience for that audience, you know, you have to start there. It starts before even a line of code is written.
Yeah.
I
Maria?
also add on to it, just like break it down even more. I think authenticity is like super important with games. I think a lot of times when I look at pitch decks or people like talk to me about their game, they're like, we're building the Web3 version of Pokemon or the Web3 version of World of Warcraft. And I was like, dude, I grew up with Pokemon. Like on Saturday, I would wake up at 10 a.m. I'm like, channel 11, right? I'm watching Pokemon. I'm collecting the cards. I have Nintendo. I'm playing the games, right? And if you're telling me you're building the Web3 version of that, and I'm like, dude, yeah, I'm like, you kind of lost me, man, you know? So like, what I really want to see in Web3 is like really good IP that you're developing that's like not in Web2 already. That's how you're going to be attracting, right? Authenticity is so, so important. Like gamers know, especially with the immersive experience that you're creating for them. And at this day and age, we're fighting for attention. It's like, it's not just games, it's like movies, you know, in real life experiences. Like those are things to like keep in mind, you're fighting for attention. I think the second part is like good game loops, right? I think right now when I look at these Web3 games, I'm just like, dude, you're kind of losing my attention. It's like not great. I'm not really progressing in the game. Like, why do I want to play this game, dude? Please tell me. I don't know. And so I know this kind of like all wrapping it up. It's like, you know, a really good game will distribute. So last night I was actually having dinner with Dan Din from TSM, and he was like one of the early folks to play League of Legends, like in the hundreds, I believe. And back in the day, he was like basically playing with people who developed the game. And then he was like, yeah, and then they're like telling me to like help create a guide on like how to play League of Legends. You want people like Dan to be playing your game and to be vouching for you guys on how to play that game. And then TSM happened, right? And they're playing League. Like this is the type of like, addiction is the wrong word, but you know, the addiction that you want to have for a game. And so a really good game will distribute itself. Obviously there's marketing and all that stuff, but it really comes down to
Of
that.
course.
Yeah, there is a huge dilemma that making a really great game takes time and money. And then in the Web3, the developers take rate is lower than the Web2. Then how we can make it possible to make a great game, expensive game in the Web3, where we can take less from the revenue. So that's a huge dilemma, and I'm still considering how we can not be compared to the rich Web2 games when we create the Web3 games, because there is no way to compete against the very good Web2 games with the economics in the Web3 game. So that's the challenge.
Yeah, it's a big one. I don't think we'll solve it right now.
Andrew, you're going to solve it though, right?
Yeah, I'll solve it. Just give me some time.
Start with indie games, maybe.
Yeah. All right, so our last topic is about marketing channels. And I think everyone here knows that Twitter is super heavy for everything Web3. And I'm wondering, is that right? Are they real gamers? Are we attracting the wrong audience by focusing on Twitter and crypto users? What do you think?
I'd say go for it. I mean, if your game is like pre-alpha something, it's not like you're going to get Web2 gamers either. Mm-hmm. So you might as well find some crypto gamers from Twitter to play your game and give you some quality assurance, maybe feedback and whatnot. But I would still practice some caution, especially when collecting data and analyzing player behavior, because incentives for these kind of players, I could put it on quote like players, can be very, very different from that Web2 users.
Yeah.
You all know all the NFT flippers and hunters, and there's a lot of terms that I don't even know.
Yeah, so it kind of comes back to the ability to build a really early community is there, and maybe it's not, once you transition into like full game, you go broader to other channels. Absolutely.
And I mean, there are definitely like real gamers in Web3 as well. We try to reach them through content creators, just like Kam said earlier. We've been doing some pretty creative ways, like adding.
Talk about that.
Yeah, like adding. We've done some in-game features featuring like these content creators. Like there was a crypto starches agent training course mini game in our game, and that's kind of like how we combine game development with marketing. We designed the game in a way that we can easily like feature these content creators in the game. They love it, obviously, to see themselves in the game, and everyone wins because we need NPCs and whatnot. So we can do that, and that's also been a really great way to reach out to those real players and real gamers. And it's all about testing different audiences, but at the same time, we're actually finding those community members that will convert into real gamers. We get valuable data on different kind of player cohorts, different kind of gamer behaviors in Web3. And everyone talks about whales and how to catch a whale. That's a great way to find them.
Yeah, there are whales in crypto.
There are,
yeah.
Couple.
Yeah, a couple. Eiji, what do you think?
Yeah, normally we use Twitter and Discord for the game user acquisition, but for the Twitter, in Japan, it's totally different.
Yeah.
So every single game player is using Twitter, so that's fine. But outside of Japan, I know there are a lot of crypto users on the Twitter, but are there any real gaming users on Twitter? I'm not sure.
I believe in Timo that yes, there are, but they're in pockets, and you want to make sure that you're attracting the right ones instead of the traders. But yeah.
So we used multiple channels based on the regions. So for example, in the several Asian countries, the Facebook page or Facebook group is the biggest the community for the game users. And in Korea, I think we are using Naver. So based on the regions and based on the communities we want to reach out, we use different channels.
Yeah.
So I hope we can have one single channel. We can bring all users in, but reality is not.
Yeah, everyone has different preferences for platforms and varies a lot by region. Yeah, Maria, what are your thoughts? You gonna get spicy?
Can I ask the audience?
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
Okay, actually I want to do this. So I'm assuming there's gamers in this room right now. Can you raise your hand if you still use YouTube for streaming? Or just like watching videos or like for games and stuff?
YouTube
Okay.
for games, yes.
Yeah?
Okay. All
Okay,
right,
do
pretty
you
good.
guys use Twitch? Okay.
Yeah, all right.
That's a pretty good amount in the room. I would say that Twitter is good for like the Web3 community because when you're developing a Web3 game, you want to be able to cater both to Web2 and Web3, right? So Twitter, definitely agree that like, you know, you want to continuously updating your community. But I still think that, you know, if you're trying to meet, as Kam has said, where gamers are at, you got to go where they are at, right? It's going to be Twitch. It's going to be YouTube. These are like the top of the top where you get a lot of people that are viewing the games, right? There's actually a new platform that I've been looking into. It's called kick.com. It's more recently, it came out, was it this year? Or like, I think it was like late last year. What's interesting about them is that around, I think 90% of the revenue goes back to the content creators. And they're currently more of like a Web2 user experience, but I think there's some crypto related to there. But that's a really interesting platform because a lot of users are moving onto that platform. But I would say in terms of marketing and getting your game out there, YouTube, Twitch, those are the areas that I would say you still need to market towards.
Yeah, Twitter's a great area to update your community, like you said. It's text-based. It's a little easier lift, but it doesn't show off a game the same way that YouTube and Twitch can, and it doesn't reach the same users. Kam, what do you think?
Yeah, I think, you know, echoing what everyone else has said here, there's no, you know, negatives to building a community and finding those early users on Twitter. What I would say is not to just focus on one specific channel. What any game studio should be looking for is first initially product market fit, but then also trying to understand who their audience are. Like Maria said, where is that audience? Where do they reside? Where are they consuming content? And right now I think there's a, like you mentioned, a focal point on Twitter. But, you know, start experimenting on TikTok, on YouTube, on Instagram, on Twitch. That will also give you an understanding of the appetite for your game from users that aren't focused just on the Web3 side, right? And ultimately, that's what we all need. We need to build and onboard gamers that are playing, like I mentioned, Web2 games to really grow the space.
Yeah, and we've mentioned experimentation a number of times. These channels require experimentation. TikTok especially, it's like so much iteration. So start early, I think. Put out some videos, refine, get better at it, so that when you're really making that push towards the Web2 audience, you're prepared, would be my take. Well, it looks
We
like,
all just want the data, the user data.
yeah, right. Maria just wants data to analyze and make strategies off of. What is it? Time is up. All right. Thanks, everybody.
The
I
number
think we're
goes
having
up.
too much fun.